Welcome, everyone. My name is Frida Nixdorf, and I represent the Work That Reconnects network. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar's Conversation Cafe program, where we are providing a wide range of rich, educational, and supportive online events for our global Work That Reconnects community. Our intention is to strengthen the web of the community while reaching beyond its current edges to weave deeper connections with others who are contributing to the great turning in diverse and complementary ways. So the Work That Reconnects isn't tied to any one place or people. It speaks to something we all carry, the longing to belong, to act with courage, and to find meaning in uncertain times. No matter where we come from, we all know grief. We all know love, and we all have the capacity to reconnect. That's what makes this work feel like home, wherever it lands. And today we're excited to share a new initiative from the Social Justice Committee of the Work That Reconnects network, in which we'll be spotlighting facilitators of Work That Reconnects across continents. Today's conversation will include Helen Sui from China, Sunisa Jamwiset from Thailand, Thao Kin from Vietnam, and Shayontoni Ghosh from India will be moderating. Our panelists will explore topics such as the presence and growth of the Work That Reconnects in these Asian regions, the role and process of translating and adapting its core texts, and the facilitators' personal journeys and points of resonance between these distinct cultures. And now I'm delighted to hand it over to Shayontoni.
Thank you. And hi, everybody. We are so happy you could join us today. And hello to everybody who's watching later. My name is Shayontoni. I am one of the staff members of the Work That Reconnects network, and I will be moderating our conversation today. I'm so happy that you could join us today. I am so excited to welcome our panelists. We have Helen Sui, Sunisa Jamwiset, and Thao Kin. And I would love for us to get started with a round of introductions. So my intention with this is to share a symbol, a sacred symbol from my particular culture, while also introducing myself along with it. And this right here is the Shri Yantra. This is a sacred diagram, a sacred geometric diagram, which is used in Hindu tantric traditions, as well as a lot of other cultures in Asia. And why this resonates with me is very simply because of what we see in the middle. If you look very closely, there is a dot right in the middle, and everything kind of emerges from it. And I think my life as a facilitator, my entire life to this point, to be here with you, all of you today, has so many different angles to it, each of them precise, each of them full of life and color. And when I present myself to you here today, I am so much more than a moderator or somebody working on, on the staff as the network. I am an artist. I am a writer and a theater maker. I take care of my mother and our dog. I am the only child. I come from a legacy of deep trauma and harm, which have been caused by colonial actions, colonial campaigns, and everything really is tied together by this central point of beingness, a central point of really embodying all it takes to be alive. And when I think of myself in that way, this is the image that comes to me. So I really wanted to share this with you all today. And let's move on to Sunisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sunisa Jamwiset from Thailand. I am co-founder of our community, Kaya Ashram. I'd like to introduce myself, starting with this image that I'm sharing with you, which is the image of a sacred dance that in our culture that we do to worship or communicating with our gods of abundance. So I grew up in a culture that is, we believe in nature spirits. We believe in the worlds that are animating the natural worlds. And in our culture, we often have traditions or practices to show the natural worlds or the spirit of the natural worlds to that we are aware of their existence and that we constantly collaborating, asking for their blessing. So in this dance, it's like we are doing sacred dance to the god of rain, to the god of abundance in the beginning of rainy season, which is happening now. Our village just happened like last week. And growing up in this culture as a girls, all the girls, we all learn how to do this dance, or the elder teaching us. And that's really shaped my view on knowing that there are other worlds that watching over us. They are the nature spirits that watching over us, whatever we do. When we swim in the water is watching us. When we walk on the land is watching us. When we go into the forest is watching us. So in our tradition, we constantly come to be aware that there are other worlds that we collaborate with. I think that shaped my way as a facilitators. The work that my journey have took me to disconnect from that culture for some times with the modern education that I have. Of course, I'm grateful for that, but also it have the effect of that kind of disconnection with my root. And the work that reconnect kind of helped me to remember that. Not only remember our story and our roots, but also make it become very alive, like all that stories that we are told. I experience it again through the process of the work that reconnect, and it feels so much more real. And it shaped my work as a facilitator in a way that I constantly feel that we are collaborating with the more than human world in the work that reconnect. So I often um, really bringing in my traditions of communicating with the nature spirit, or communicating with the land, communicating with the site wherever the work is, and ask for collaboration. So yeah, so this is what I like to share with you, which is, as you can see in the image, people were really happy there because we are really celebrating when we know like this is the moment where we and our gods, I mean the spirits, are in the moment of being aware of each other. So that's I like to share with you because it's happening now in this season also. So thank you. I get to share more later, I guess.
Thank you so much. I'd love to pass it on to Helen.
Hello, everyone. This is Helen. I would like to introduce myself along with the 12 Chinese zodiac signs. You know, when we are born, we are associated with an animal, and every family member is associated with the family, with the animal. So the whole family is kind of a animal collection as well. So I am a rabbit. If maybe we can move to the next one. All right, this one. And the rabbit, you see, I mean, it's not very clear, but in English as well. And in my family, we have a dragon, a rat, an ox, a tiger, a snake, almost everyone. So, from the childhood, I understood we are not only human beings. We have animals inside us as well, and we worship the heavenly God, the earthly God, the ocean god, like many gods. So now thinking about that, this has supported me, to understand the work that reconnects immediately. The moment I experienced that, I fell in love with it immediately. So I'm very happy to be alive, in the human form. And I'm very happy I have the opportunity to work with different forms of life as well. And very grateful actually to work with a group of people with the same nature, with the same level of love and compassion. Thank you for joining us.
Nice. Thank you so much. And we will move to Thao Kin.
Hi everyone, I'm Thao Kin. I'm calling from Vietnam. I live in an eco community in the north of Vietnam called Project OR. At the moment, I'm in the city visiting family. And I bring with me today this. I don't know if it's clear for you. This is lotus flowers. Now is the season that the lotus starting to bloom. And in my family, my mom's and most of my family members really love lotus. So it's actually a coincidence that my mother-in-law brought lotus home today, where I already prepared an image of lotus to show you, but I have lotus, the real deal, so why not? Yeah, so I think most of us heard about Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, and in the Plum Village lineage that he started, there's the saying, no mud, no lotus. And the lotus is also the national flower of Vietnam. And being a Vietnamese living in Vietnam is very much like living in muddy waters. Like, it's most of the time not clear, sometimes stinky, but also very rich in nutrients. A lot of things happening, very diverse life. Yeah, and I also resonate a lot my own journey with being a lotus, like learning how to live in muddy waters and how to collaborate with the beings in the mud and appreciate the nutrients from that grows myself. So yeah, that's the image that I want to present with you. It's a part of me and it's a part of my culture.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. I am happy to move on to a round of slightly deeper introductions, in the sense I want to ask us all today how you came to the Work That Reconnects, or how the Work That Reconnects found you. And maybe while you're telling us the story, share a very pivotal moment or an experience in your facilitation journey, or your personal journey, which came across due to the Work That Reconnects. So we will take about 4 to 5 minutes each for this and share freely. And I'm happy to cut us off if we go over time. Yeah. Shall we begin with Helen? Is that okay?
Yes. Thank you, Shayontoni. My journey started back in 2019. That was a big year for me. That's the year when when my grandma passed away, and I spent most of my childhood with her. So it was a huge loss for me. And she was my tiger. I mean, this is from actually her. So, and then I left my company. I mean, the company I worked with for over 19 years. So I was joking with my friends, but I guess now I think it's serious. That was a big loss here for me back in 2019. So then I started looking for something that could deep into my heart. So then I encountered the Work That Reconnects. In China, when it started, it was called Active Hope. It was brought to China by a dearest Japanese teacher, Hidi-san. So in the work, I was really impressed by the honoring the pain stage of the spiral, the truth mandala. I thought, oh my goodness, it's astonishing. This is a very different way for me to express pain. So, but I wasn't thinking of doing anything about it because I was still kind of facing and healing my own pain. So I was still doing my usual work, coaching, training. And then 2020, very early in the year, the pandemic started. I lost my job again. Couldn't go out and do training or coaching, anymore. So then one of my coaching colleagues, friends as well, Ye Jing, she read one of the articles Chris Johnson put together about doing a spiral within 10 minutes, something like that. And then she mentioned, maybe we could do this, support people through this miserable time. And that's how we started doing something specific around the spiral with the work. And it was online, so it went viral. People came and people laughing, crying, supporting each other through that difficult time. And that motivated me to seriously consider, this as my career, as my work. So I started the first offsite workshop, we call it. And that's also a meaningful time for me because actually even though the online, activity went quite well, but still not enough people knew about the work. So very, very few people came to the workshop. But my determination was, if I had 2 people, I would do it. And then I think 5 people showed up. So we did our first one. It wasn't perfect. I was, really just exploring the work while doing it. But the more I do it, the more I love it. And the more I see the meaningfulness, the purpose underneath the work. So that's how I started back in 2020. And then another milestone was back in 2021, I joined the network. So I have my colleagues, Shayontoni here, Freda, Gemma, and I see Kathleen and Molly as well. Thank you, everyone, for supporting me through my tough time and learning the work as well. Another milestone. Last year, January, we published the Chinese edition of Active Hope book. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Shayontoni.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I wasn't cutting you off. I was celebrating you. That yay!
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you, but
No.
thank you.
No worries. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, can I call in Keen, please?
Hey, so
Hi.
hello again, everyone. My journey with the Work That Reconnect started actually with in Thailand. The first time that I get to know about and experience the Work That Reconnect was in an ED, Eco-Village Design Education course in Gaia Ashram. And then it was back in 2016. And then the next year, Della Duncan came to Vietnam and did a workshop on the Work That Reconnect. And that was so far the only facilitator from overseas that came to Vietnam who did workshop on the Work That Reconnect. And I got the blessing to join that workshop. And then after that, I started to practice. I co-facilitated with a few times in Thailand. And then I decided to do the first retreat on the Work That Reconnects in Vietnam. I think it was in 2022, early 2022, after COVID. And and until now, the Work That Reconnects is still a practice that is very new in Vietnam. We have a small circles of people who know and practice, and then we do workshops online or in person from time to time. And I also got to introduce this to some public schools teachers in a program called Happy Schools Vietnam a few times. So that was really fun, and it was a great blessing. But I think the most memorable experience for me was my first 5-day retreat in Vietnam that I did, co-facilitating with a friend of mine. And in that workshop, we did, one of the activities we did was the Council of All Beings. And one of the participants, she was going through a depression period during the time of the workshop. And at the Council of All Being, she decided to choose to be the poop, you know, like the poop. And I think that the moment that we know that she chose to be poop, it meant many different things to different people in the circle. A lot of people thought it was funny. Some other might understand that she might just really feel like shit at that time, you know. And but what was amazing is how much it opens just her choice of choosing to be that. Opens the thinking process and the conversation, and how she shared about it during the Council of Being was really amazing for me. Because at first you wouldn't start immediately connecting poop with life, or with different process of life, with how many creatures, how many microorganisms, and the process that keep going on inside of it. And it's also meant a lot for me personally to think about. Sometimes I also forgot to honor the composting part of my life when I actually was living in this process of transforming from food to poo, to life again. And I think that choice later on became very transformative for that particular participant that I'm sharing about, but also for all of us in the circle. And after this Council of Wellbeing, we just keep talking about how amazing that is. And later on, a lot of other people in the circle started to call themselves as being poo as well. And it's just amazing. Normally, you wouldn't have that image inside of a workshop and being really embraced and loved by everyone. So yeah, that's really a lesson for me on just tuning in with what comes up in the circle, and how everything has so much to give us, for us to learn from, as long as we hold an honorable process for it. So I really thank Council of All Being for it.
Right. Wow. You thank Council of All Beings and poop for it. Nice. Thank you so much for sharing. Can I bring in Om, please?
Yes, thank you for both of your stories that help to remind me about my own stories. I shared before that I had this background in my cultures where the stories are told that we are connected with the modern human worlds, and there's a spiritual world that animates nature that we need to collaborate with, and that get lost in the way of my life journey, where I get my modern education until I joined Bongsanit Ashram near Bangkok, where I met my teachers, Jane Rajpaj and Pracha Hutanuwat, who introduced me to the Work That Reconnect and the deep ecology, and where they introduced this Work That Reconnect process. that really reignites that story to become really, really alive. I remember a moment where it's all make everything become so alive, and when we get to observe nature, and then I was observing a bird flying in the sky, and then I was thinking, how would it feel like to be a bird flying in the sky? And then I was thinking that I feel like I suddenly shift to become really that bird flying in the sky. And I feel like I really experience the gentle breeze beneath my wings. And I feel so like how to say, amazed by how your experience can change when you shift your perspective, when you shift your way of, where you place yourself. And then follow from that was the widening circle that guided by Jane, where I experienced myself in different perspectives and really, really enjoy to realize how painful others could feel in different circumstances. And I realized my ability to feel and empathy and then to experience the pain of others. I don't really know is there really feeling that, but my ability of trying to understand was real to me. And it gave me so much different experience and different learning. And I feel really, I feel like really called to the work because it feels so natural to me. I mean, I grew up in the wilderness in my childhood. We didn't have TV or electricity. I feel very comfortable with the wilderness, and the work that we connect kind of give the framework and the language of how can I share that world with others. So I feel really inspired, and my journey kind of natural grow in that process. And I was lucky to be guided and mentored by my teachers, Pracha Hutanuwat, who is like really good at facilitation and how to train me in facilitation. And my work as a facilitator for the Work That Reconnect start maybe more than 15 years ago since then. And I work as the trainer for the next generation of the Global Eco Village Network of Oceania Asia. So I start to offer this training to youth in South Asia and in Southeast Asia. And my experience with facilitating this work, the moment that I really realized the power of the framework was when I did the workshop in Bangladesh for the youth in the Bangladesh, who was about 50 of them came to the workshop because they were so really wanting to find hope, and then hoping that whatever kind of workshop would give them kind of hope of where to go. And then there was, when we did the process to the point of the despair work, the honoring our pain. And there was a moment where the whole room of 50 youth were feeling so down, so depressed, so painful. And I experienced my fear of, am I bringing them so even worse than before, of already feeling hopelessness. But then there was this moment of trust that I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to shame this situation. And we all just gonna stay in silent moment for that feeling. And we stay in a very long moment of despair and hopelessness until there was like the first voice rising, saying strongly like, but we can't let it be like this. And then that was the starting point, and the others start to energy in the room start to feeding into that moment, and then to the peak of like it's transformed into like that, into power, into making change. So that's really give me the trust in the power of the framework, that trusting that, and then trusting the group, trusting this sense of connection people have with each other and with life, and that inspired me even more. So I continue to do that work for Next Gen, and then I do work in the East Asia, Southeast Asia, and in the South Asia. And then at one point thinking that how it would be like if we put this kind of framework or the work that we connect as a foundation of our day-to-day life. So
Yeah.
that is the inspiration to create Gaia Ashram as like, let's try out. What if we all living with this awareness constantly? So that's the where we are now. So Gaia Ashram is a 12 years old
I'm
community.
really excited to ask you about that. Well,
Thank you. I hope I didn't take too much time.
no worries. Right. Um, Thank you for these incredible stories. It's so, it makes me feel so hopeful. It makes me feel just so excited and energized to hear us coming into the work from so many different angles. So thank you all. We will be moving into what I like to call a spotlight round. And how this is going to work is I will be throwing a question to the entire room. Perhaps all of us could be spotlit right now while I'm speaking. Awesome. I will be throwing a question to all of us, and each question will have 5 minutes again. And there's no pressure for any one of us to begin, but whoever feels called to, please unmute yourself, speak loudly, and then you will be spotlit for as long, for as long as you speak. And then remember that we have some time for the other people as well. All right. So my first question to all of us is, and we'll start with an easy one. What does resilience look like in your country? And part B, how is it different, if at all, from any Western idea of resilience? I'll repeat. What does resilience look like in your country? And how is it different, if it is different, from any Western ideas of resilience? Yeah.
I'll just go ahead.
Of course.
We have a pretty high, level of resilience here. That's what I'm telling people, because I'm also doing a resilience course with people, both online and offline. And I recognize the resilience level. And meanwhile, most people don't agree. They don't see it concrete. They challenge themselves. They wanted to be even more resilient. And the reason I say actually we have enough resilience here is, from my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, the situation was a lot more challenging and harder. But they never complain. My parents never complain, and my grandma never complained either. And they were so good at working together, supporting each other, collaborating. And the same things happen now, but it seems people see it differently. So for me, my work is to bring that out, activate that sense of recognizing I am, resilient, or even, if I'm in a difficult situation, I can activate my resilience to face the challenging situations. Actually, for most people, this is what they are doing. So that's one perspective from me. And for the later part of the question, I'm Yeah, I don't actually have any ideas right now about the Western ideas of resilience.
All right, great. Do either of you feel like jumping in?
So it's also interesting for me because I'm also part of a project called the Eco-Village Resilience in the Eco-Village Network. And I guess my perspective on, I don't know if I would call it the Western idea of it, but it's just what I work with my folks, and most of them are from Western countries, are that they have a lot of really well-made frameworks on what is resilience, what are the different aspects, and what to do in different situations. And in our country, or maybe I would say in the region that we live in, we live with the Thai ethnic tribal communities in the north. There's no harmonious understanding of a framework of what it is to be resilient. But there are closely knitted communities that live not too far from each other in small villages, communes, and there's always this flow of communication among these communities, and the people are living in very close relationship with the forests, with the fields, with nature. So I would say the feedback loop or the communication circle, it's really fast and short. And one example I would like to share is last year we had a very long period of rain, which later on created a lot of landslides in the area. Like the whole north of Vietnam, we suffered a lot from landslides last year, and in our region as well. And what happened in a village close to us was that a family was evacuated before the landslide happened. And then the landslide happened and destroyed their house. And then the news got to all the villages around, and every house sent at least one person to come and help that family to rebuild their house and rebuild their garden. And that the news doesn't need to go on to like the top level of government or, to scientists or whoever. It's just the people can access the risk of landslide by themselves, not needing any expert from outside. They can take action, and then they support each other right away with that closely knitted web of communication and relationships. And I think that for me is what resilience looks like.
Yeah. It's like a natural response which comes from having a close-knit, well-trained community. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we are out of time for this question. Although, Om, if there's something you wanted to share, perhaps we can. We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with Kin that when I think of resiliency, it has many aspects to it. I tend to think like there is, economical resiliency, emotional or spiritual resiliencies, and the resiliency in terms of our ability to co-living with the natural world. And I think, but all the aspects, I kind of think that there's foundation for that to happen is the connections and the awareness. What's in Thailand is, I see that the connection and networking between different areas, between different people who, the more we are connected and work together, the more that bring in resiliency in different aspects. So that's just a small thing I want to add.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay. The next question for the room is, what strengths does Asia, as a generalized context, what strength does Asia bring to the global Work That Reconnects community, which is not yet fully seen? Is that clear? What strengths are we bringing, all of us, to the global Work That Reconnects community, which is not yet fully seen? Yeah. And whoever wants to step in, please unmute and share.
I would like to share one point first. What come up first immediately for me was the connection to ancestors. And I think maybe Helen and Om have the same experience with me. When growing up, we were taught to respect our ancestors and shared about who they are. And we have rituals and ceremonies. For Vietnam, we have the offering every full moon and new moon to the ancestors. And I think that is something very, very close in our daily life, that when I get to know about the Work That Reconnect, I really love deep times, the concept of deep time and of all the activities on deep times. And I can feel myself connect to them really fast and easily. And I think part of it is because we have this connection to ancestors, more human being ancestor than non-human beings in our traditions, but still it's something that we have grown up with.
Yeah, lovely. I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah, I can follow with that. I think the diverse culture that we still hold in our region is something very unique also. So when doing the Work That Reconnect facilitation in different locations, I really like to go specific in that location about learning about their stories, look around the landscape, talking to the local people. I often require me being in the site 2 days prior to the workshop to just do that survey and then learning the local cultures and visit their sacred space and then observing their normal life and then trying to localize the Work That Reconnect and see the connection where the message of the Work Reconnect can enhance what is already existing there in the shared message in their culture. So I find that it is very, very fun to do this work in this way because each locations have their very unique culture, even in the same country, but in the different location, in different region, people have their history and their stories and their connections with how they living on the land and seeing myself as going into a space where to trying to find a work where we could help people become more deepening, connecting with their own land and their own where they are, to feel belong to where they are. I think paying a lot of attention to that specific location, a specific group, and localized, and then like trying to understand how the Work That Reconnect can empower what is already existing, which is quite diverse in our region so far that I experienced. Yeah.
Right. Great point. Yeah. Yes, Helen.
Yeah, Helen here. I would like to add the presence of Asia, the presence of us as an individual or as a group of people, can help or can let the work more diverse. We might not be doing exactly the same thing, number one, and number two, even though we are doing maybe exactly the same thing, but the responses could be different from Asian people, from Chinese people. I can, when I'm speaking, I'm actually feeling a little bit nervous. I just don't see myself represent, each Chinese individual, to be honest. So I'm only speaking from my experience. But I've seen diversity, people might not respond to the work, they have different opinions, different perspectives, and I welcome that. And that helps me to see, the difference. And I think that's the work, one of the purposes of the work as well.
I completely agree. And that's such a great point. The more diverse perspectives, the more resistance that the work receives, that's how much we will grow, Yeah, I love that. All right. Next question. This is a good one. Among all the other good ones. What part of your cultural heritage already knew the work that reconnects before you officially found it? So I'll repeat. What part of your cultural heritage already knew the work that reconnects before you officially found it? And I'll start our timer. And I think Om is unmuted. Well, yes, let's go.
Sure. This is very clear to me. In my culture, the gratitude part is very foundation of our culture, and also the many perspective, thinking in many different perspectives, which is trying to understand the others, is part of our culture. In our culture, it's very compromising culture. So that means whenever some difficult challenge happens, for example, conflict in the families or in the community, everyone trying to think like, what might happen, what the other people might be feeling, what might have happened if this and that. So we are often putting ourselves in the shoes of others, and which is make it also easy when we learn the work that reconnect to put ourselves in the perspective of the non-humans also. And but the part that doesn't exist so much in our culture is the honoring the pain. We are a very optimistic culture. We don't we always look at like the positive side of things, which is when I get to know the work that we connect, and then connecting to that aspect, I feel it's even more powerful for the other aspect as well. So thank you.
Interesting. Nice. Okay. Who would like to jump in?
It's Kin. I can share
Yes.
something. I think I've bring in the aspect of deep times again, and in our culture, the ways that we show respect to those that came before us and gratitude to the spirits of nature, to our ancestors, to the land, the water, for making things possible for us. It's already there in our culture. And I would say it's being faded away, which is why bringing them back is so important. But they were there, and in many places they are still very alive. Like we have at the beginning of the rice season, the first harvest, we would celebrate a festival called the New Rice Festival and offer the first batch of rice to the land, to the deities, to the spirits. And we only eat the second batch. So that shows the respect that we have to nature and to any force that support us to have this life. And yeah, I think that's what we already have before I heard about the work that reconnects. And then the aspect of gratitude in the work that reconnects is also really strong. And I love that it's keep coming, not just at the first part of the spiral, but in any part of that spiral, you can sense the really strong presence of gratitude.
Yeah, great answer. Yeah. And I think even maybe I can add something to this. For me, yes, on what all of you have said. And for me, I think it was always very easy to imagine myself as an animal or, any other more than human form. There are so many gods here who are like hybrid animal human forms, that it is a very integral part of our culture to imagine ourselves as more than human almost on a daily basis. It's in our yoga, it's in our prayers, it's in a lot of our cultural markers. So that was always very easy for us. And when I found the Work That Reconnects, I was very excited by this as well, because it's theatrics and imagination as well as deep work. So, yeah. All right. Next question. What wounds or disconnections in your country or cultural heritage or culture, sorry, do you think Work That Reconnects can truly touch? I'll repeat. What wounds or disconnections in your country do you think Work That Reconnects can truly touch? Whoever wants to begin, we can start.
Helen here. This is a difficult one.
Mm.
We are not motivated or encouraged to talk about this in real life. So usually, this is a private, a small group gathering topic. I think in our country, there are a few major wounds. I would see it associated with wars or some major events. Started probably from about 100 years now, or over 100 years now. I don't see us honor that pain enough. It's not only an individual choice, but also a collective decision even. It's difficult to break at this point. So from my perspective, tackle it from an individual level might be helpful at this stage. So when we can be connected with ourselves, and with the extended ecological self, we will have the courage and the awareness, the level of compassion to face it. So hopefully that will be brought to the collective level. And saying that, I have the faith one day this will be faced or dealt with collectively. I hope I can see that day.
Beautiful, Helen. Yes,
Yes, as for my country, the way I see it is that different groups have carried different pains and different wounds. For example, people of my region still at a deeper level, more subtle level, still suffering racism within our own country, from the people who are from the same nation. And there are some groups that are carrying the pains of the political situations that is very hard to feel the hope and to keep carrying on. And there are some groups, especially for the younger generation, suffering, feeling lost, disconnection from this sense of purpose and meaning, sense of belonging. So I think there are different groups that suffering for the different aspect of life. And as the work that reconnects, I think if we want to work with specific issues to help to heal those, I think all these issues at a deeper level, there is the sense of disconnection that the work that reconnect can specifically look into and then shaped to serve for the specific purpose to heal the specific issue with the specific group. But what the group that I work with most are the groups that are having this wound of disconnecting with the world, with the purpose, with the meaning, and feeling lost and depressed, and they're coming to kind of find that life makes sense again, which is, I think, the work that we connect, starting with become aware of that you're not alone, you're part of this immense network of life, and that it's starting to help. And then the next stage is like finding your place and your role and your contribution into that.
Yeah. You. Keen, would you like to share something?
Yeah, I also reconnect really resonate with what Helen and shared about violence, disparities, and we have that in Vietnam too. And one more thing I'd like to add is that I can observe a growing pain and eco-anxiety among young people in Vietnam. And there's not really anywhere that people can bring that to or shared. If you shared to someone that you had nightmares thinking about the future of the earth, people might just take it as a joke or something. Yeah, so I have a lot of friends who starting to talk about this, and this is where I think the work that reconnects really can support their journey of being with and moving through the anxiety that they have thinking about the future of the earth.
Right. Right. Thank you. Okay. Now, I would love for all of us to, well, first of all, thank you all for your great answers. It is really so heartening to discover so many connections between our incredibly same but different cultures. And it's just great to see where everything is landing for us. We would like to move into pods, please. So what we are going to be doing is all of us as a room, we will be breaking up into small pods of about 3 to 4 people each. And I will invite all of us to use the following prompt that we will share in the chat use it for open sharing and reflection. The prompt is, from the conversation that we just had, what resonated with you and what in your own culture or geographical context is asking for reconnection. So from what we just shared, what resonated and what is asking for reconnection. Welcome back, everybody. And my, of course, we all get cut off way too early. Thank you, Gemma and Ying in my breakout room, in my little pod for our wonderful conversation. And yeah, we got cut off. I would love for all of us, now that we are back, now this is the time for us to have an open panel dialogue. And how this will be different from what we just did is this is going to be a more free-flowing conversation. I'm going to drop a question into our room and one of us pick it up, and then we will kind of flow from there. I have a list of questions, of course, being well prepared, but that is not the point. The point is we are going to follow the thread of conversation now for the next 25 minutes. And shall we do this? Shall we get started? I'll just put an internal timer for myself. Okay. The first question official question that I have for us. And, we'll start it off very light and easy. What pain or contradiction do you carry as a facilitator, personally or culturally? What pain or contradiction do you carry as a facilitator, personally or culturally? No timer, no obligation to answer first. This is a free-flowing round.
Shay, I thought you said easy and
Yeah,
light.
yeah. Is this not?
I have something I can
Yeah.
share. Yeah, I think one thing that has been a bit challenging for me to digest with myself is that I heard a lot about, or I learned a lot about different stories of indigenous wisdom and communities. And in the bubbles that I live with or learned from, a lot of these stories come from North America and Latin America. And then I was like, I really want to find these stories in my own culture, the stories of the innate connection of human with nature before colonization and all. And then I set out to do that. And I realized it was so difficult. I looked into mythologies, I looked into folklores, and a lot of our stories, well, I come from the King ethnicity in Vietnam, which is one of the 56 ethnicities and the major one. So in our stories and folklores, a lot of the stories are actually about how we as humans rise above and learn how to tame nature. And then I also looked into stories of other ethnicities. And I think maybe I haven't really traced back long or far enough, but the same pattern, I found a lot of stories about human taming nature, rising out of difficulties and become like the master of the elements and all that. There are some talking about the respect that humans have for nature, and in order to live in harmony with nature, respect is very important in our belief. So to really let the spirits and nature deities to have their space, to not really intervene into the process. But still, I think this is a lot about me, like trying to find the good stories so that I can connect it with the practice of the work that we connect. Yeah. So that's something I found. Why I'm still struggling to find that story. I realized that it's an internal struggle that I have with myself, that I want to have a good stories. Like I learned so many of these beautiful stories and wisdom from other country, and I want to find that in my language, in my local culture as well. Yeah, so that's something I would like to share.
Well, you said that you were able to find a few stories of connection and mutual respect.
There were some, yes, but the stories of human over nature, like way lot more.
Right. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of stories are what we choose to pass on, right, to the next generation. It's highlight what's important from the previous generation that they would like to keep in stories and pass on. And I think the appreciation of how the achievement that we made as communities of human beings is just really strong. And it's come across in many different ways, in different ways of storytellings. And I wouldn't say that it's bad, because, we are human communities and we acknowledge the strengths and the creativity that we have. And sharing about this, I feel like it's more about me just trying to find like a particular thing, why why the reality is not as what I perceived.
Right. Right. Yeah, stories are about what we choose to remember as a culture. And I would assume that for us, for our ancestors, survival, stories of survival and resilience, like for them, that was resilience, that was survival. And it was it was vital for them to teach us how to survive, as opposed to how to connect. You know, maybe that is an angle here. Maybe that has something to do with that. What do you think?
Yeah, I can connect to what Tim can just share, and then sharing that the pains that I carry very deeply inside me, this sense of guilt of being
Guilt?
human. Guilt, yeah.
Ah,
Guilt of being human. And it's not because of the history that I study, it's just what I'm witnessing now in my lifetime of
right.
what we have done to the natural world and to many life around us. And it's just very sad to realize that, is this really who we are? Is it really what I am? It's hard. It's difficult fact to take in,
Yeah.
and this is what we meant to be, the destruction of Earth, and it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to bear, and I think even though I search many different stories to tell a different story, I think I won't heal. And I think what heal is that I actually experience a different story in front of me. So when I do the work that reconnects, I actually experience people are capable of caring. People are loving, people are caring, empathy, and we can care so much. We can love, we can care beyond ourselves. We can care beyond our own generations. We can care beyond our own worlds. And that's what is really giving this hope, you know. That's why I carry on continue to experience a different story and creating a space for a different stories to manifest. And that is a role as a facilitators. And that is why I think that let's create a community where we actually nurture that kind of nature inside the humans and let it become our new story. Let it become a new culture that become a new potential. So I think like that's good. Also a hope in a way is like, okay, let's take this to a new direction and let's show a difference. Yeah.
I hear you. And I think something that's emerging to me based on what the both of you just shared is it's really important for us, those of us who are doing the work, those of us who are facilitating or being a part of the workshops, it's important we start writing. It's important we start creating these stories of our own to pass on to our future generations. It's what we choose to remember that we pass on. Yeah. Helen, would you like to share anything based on the question or based on what Om and Keen just shared? That's something that's coming to you.
Yeah, it just resonates, yeah, with me. It's more of a question probably for me. We do this work, or I do this work, I understand what I'm doing. And then from the participants' perspective, from their experience, what are they experiencing? They tell us good things, yeah, about us as facilitators, about the work. And I ask myself, what am I looking for, from the participants as well? Are they getting what's needed for this transformation? There are people who constantly come back to our workshop. On the one hand, we're very happy. On the other hand, I'm kind of asking, is this really supporting this person or those people? That's my contradiction. What's needed for a person to transform?
Interesting.
And in what way what I'm doing, is what I'm doing supporting people? I don't have an answer yet. I guess what I can do right now is just do what I see right and continue exploring what's really needed.
Right. Yeah. What I'm hearing is the contradiction, the pain or contradiction lies in the thought that perhaps you are not closing open loops and instead just keeping on like open feedback loops going. And is that actually being helpful? And the question is that actually being helpful? Or are you simply creating like a never-ending feedback process where participants keep coming, but no change actually happens? Am I getting that right? That is the question, that is the pain?
Right.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Have either of you ever felt something like that, Keen?
Yeah, I think like when doing the work, it feels like I'm doing my part and try my best. And I don't really know what people experience. I think even though they told me I can't really understand fully what's going on. So I think I kind of, after I've done this, I kind of, okay, is it done? Yeah. But of course, it's sometimes they're feeling like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have done this better. There's always, after 15 years, still having that.
Yeah. What about you, Kim?
I think yeah, it's a, as a facilitator, I think it's a learning for me to balance between trusting the process, trusting that it's not about me carrying and transferring all of these experience and insights, but it's the process and the collective that create the learning and the experience. But at the same time, hearing for feedbacks and how, because not all the time people can really put things into words right away at the moment that you ask them for feedback, right? Sometimes they need to digest this, they need to experience and let that sink in. So how can I keep myself open for feedback loops? Also, it's something I wouldn't say that I know how to do yet. So it's still a learning for me as a facilitator of how to do that. Sometimes I get emails from participants a month or 2 months after. Or if for some reason I reach out to some participants and then they shared back about the workshop and how things keep being digested for them. And yeah, just opportunities of learning about the feedback way after the workshop actually happened, I think were also very precious.
All right. I would like to move on to the next question, which is, what does decolonizing work that reconnects actually look like for you? What does decolonizing work that reconnects actually look like for you? Yeah. So feel free to share whenever you'd like.
For me, I think I often just look at what are we trying to reconnect at each group in each moment. So if it's about people reconnecting with their land, sometimes it's like that when do workshop to specific groups. For example, group from Myanmar, there's like people wanting to reconnect more on their own root, to their own land, to their own bioregions, and then we look into that as a main element, and how the framework of the work that we connect could serve that. So in that sense, it's very localized. And then some groups looking into reconnecting to meanings of life, to reconnecting to what is going on in our world and in realities. And then the framework then adjusting to specific groups. And then some are reconnecting with themselves or reconnecting with other human beings. So, but often it's not like so separate, right? It's all coming together. I'm just meaning that it's really specific in each group. So, so in that sense, it doesn't have a sentence really.
Right.
It's just very localized. And then, like I mentioned before, often looking into co-creating with the landscape, with the land where the workshop is held. And then just get the insight from that, like, okay, how can we work with the landscape? How can we work with the local culture? How can we work with the local people? How can we work with what already existing to deliver this work and serve the people for that specific purpose?
Right. What I'm hearing is go completely hyper local, be flexible about the framework, and adapt to what you have in the moment.
Yeah, and I think the framework is very universal.
Yeah.
So far, I think it works with every group.
Yeah.
It's just like the way we present it and the way we tweak the question, the language is there's something of tweaking.
Absolutely. It is very much up to the facilitator how they choose to present it. Yeah. Well, Helen, Keen, would either of you like to share your answer to this question?
One thing I also want to highlight before sharing my answer is the awareness of colonization is very important for me, because usually when we talk about colonization in Vietnam, we talk about how many times we've been at war with others. But actually inside our country, there are colonization of, one ethnicity over others, of one being over others. And just the awareness about that, it's very important. And that invites me into a process of listening into maybe if there's any tension that there might be among different ethnicities that people bring with them into the room. Or tensions around maybe just regional difference. So this awareness of potential tensions that can come from history of colonization or just struggles that they have in the past, I think it's important. And one more thing, I wouldn't call it decolonizing the work that reconnects, but it's just something that I find helpful, is that I would always try to start a workshop with some mindfulness practice, a very simple mindfulness practice, but for quite a good amount of time. Because I found that with people who I usually work with, I work with young people or teachers mostly in Vietnam, asking them to already sit down and share about gratitude sometimes is not that easy. So I wouldn't start right away with coming from gratitude. I would start with something for people to arrive, reconnect to themselves, reconnect to the elements in the room. So have them really have the space and time to feel comfortable and really be in their own being, to feel the connection before starting the spiral. I think I had found that really meaningful.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I have also faced the same thing. People resist gratitude big time. Yeah. Helen, would you like to share your answer?
Yeah. And what King just shared, yeah, works for me as well. And sometimes people refuse to share pain. So, everyone's have, their own thing. So to me, I don't have a lot about this question. I guess for me, it's just do it anyway, regardless. And then, we'll encounter issues, challenges, we'll encounter questions, we address accordingly. Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, I hear you. Sometimes I think the answer to this question can be as simple as be nice to the people in the room. It doesn't have to be very complex. Be nice, be flexible, be accommodating. That's it.
Yeah.
This question I'm very excited to ask all of you. And I would love to hear your individual answers. How do you navigate nationalism, taboos, or censorship in, in your country? How do you navigate nationalism, taboos, or censorship in your country? I just want to specify to everyone that by taboos, I mean just, things that we culturally just do not talk about. Helen touched on this a little earlier. So I just want to really talk about this and drag this on. How do we navigate these concepts, these very real concepts in our countries? So perhaps, Helen, would you like to get us started?
I would prefer to listen to Om and King first. Maybe they
I'm
have
really
some
Are
different
you
opinions.
censoring yourself? Are you censoring yourself, Helen? No.
Because my answer might be short and direct.
Okay.
We don't. We don't in public.
We don't in public, okay. What about in private? Okay, okay. Om, would you like to start us off?
I mean, if it really heating up and happens during the workshops, we just make it known that this is the space for it, and it's being held in the way, and then I have to shape it more like hearing all the voice. This is a dialogue space, to make it a dialogue space, like a proper dialogue space, rather than a space where people make comments and then not getting to listen to each other so deeply. Because it's just gonna trigger more things that is, if it gonna go off where workshop wanting to take it to, and if it, then I think I would provide a proper held space for the dialogue to take place as an alternative for optional if people want to join that conversation. So
Right.
where everybody feel like, okay, if you join this, you will get to listen to, and your voice will be heard. It is not argument over each other, kind of.
Right. Have you ever faced resistance with regards to even the topics of your workshops?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very often.
Okay.
And then the same, it's like we provide a space to listen to them and allowing them to be not agreeing with us.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay to be disagreeing.
Yeah,
and then we continue together to the point where we like, okay, respect each other. The most important part for me is the mutual respect. So that means like, well, I respect your opinion and that your disagreement with me. And then, yeah, let's try your approach. Also, sometimes I have a participant suggesting I should run it differently. And then say, okay, why not? Let's try. And even though we didn't really get to try, but being heard already, clear the energy of acknowledgement, not being acknowledged.
Keen, what about you?
Mm, I see the Work That Reconnects in Vietnam is still very new. The activities are only happening in the last, say, 5-6 years, under like the name of the Work That Reconnects, with very small group of facilitators who know about it. So I wouldn't say there's like any strong censorship or taboo that we have encountered. However, there's this collective agreement in the atmosphere in any workshop in Vietnam. There are certain topics that people would not bring in right away, or we would not address face on. And that's something that it's the result of years and years of facing these either inequality in transparency, in public speaking, and it will only come up after a while, like if you really spend a long time together, or usually in very intimate conversation,
Right.
which I think actually give space for us to prepare ourselves before and talk about it in a more smaller groups. And I think mindfulness practice always help to introduce them into the workshop, and that helps people to take their time before making any comments that is so drastically different, or like open a can of worms that might lead to a lot of conflicts and stuff. And I think the method that I'm usually using in workshops that speaks to both ways, to people who are not feeling open to share yet, and for those who have a lot to share but haven't processed or digest their thoughts yet, is that I usually invite mindfulness practice in. I invite also personal journaling in before even putting them into pairs or into groups. And that gives a lot of space and time for things to be recognized and digested before it being dropped into the circle.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So you also have faced resistance when it came even to just the topics of your workshop, like the way you...
Yeah, but usually it's personal. Like there are topics that people are not ready to talk about.
Right. So this resistance is faced more within the workshop or during the practice, not so much before.
Yeah, not yet. We don't have that much publicity.
Understood.
Or like a lot of activities yet.
Right. Understood. Right. Okay. But when you will, then you feel that you might?
Well,
like
then,
if Work Next were to take off, for example, and it were to become very popular, then would you feel like the more eyes that you receive, the more resistance you would face?
I cannot say for sure, but with the Work That Reconnects, but with other topics, I do community workshop, environment workshop, and there's always certain level of carefulness that we would put in choosing wordings, topics.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Helen, would you like to share something and wrap this up?
What I can add is, we are pretty careful, doing the work, but that doesn't mean we don't do it, to the extent we support people in disease, we support people, disabled people, if you like. We support struggling people, including doctors and nurses. So wherever the support is needed, we always give it a try. But we stay away from nationalism, politics, debates, arguments. We don't get involved.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. And because we have to be here to do the work, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. That was very illuminating, and that was really nice to engage in that conversation. I would love to maybe take 3 minutes to invite the audience into the conversation. So if any of our listeners, any of the people in the room, if you have a question for any of the panelists or all of us, this would be a great time to put it into the Zoom chat, or maybe unmute yourself if that's possible. And while we are, waiting for a couple of questions to come in, the next stage for us would be a short collective visioning round. And what that would consist of is I would invite the audience with a particular prompt for all of us to answer, either by chat or by unmuting yourself. And thankfully, we also have a Google Doc where people can type in their responses. So the prompt is, if Work That Reconnects were to take deeper root in Asia, what would it look like in 5 years? And I would invite all of us to answer. Let's not worry about the fact that, oh, hey, we are not Asian, how can we say this? But all of us are here. We've received some insights today, some perspectives. So I'm sure everyone has their response to that. And we would just love to hear from the audience. And I guess we can take this second while people are thinking to answer this question ourselves, right, panelists? What could Work That Reconnects in Asia look like in the next 5 years? Given all the work that we've done so far, what could the next 5 years look like? There's a question in the chat from Gemma Boyd. Is it worth trying to work with dark truths in order to bring healing if there is such cultural resistance to it? Is it worth trying to work with dark truths in order to bring healing if there is cultural resistance to it? Can all my panelists see the question in the chat? Okay. Do we have an answer? Personally, I think what's coming to me is the word worth, right? Is it worth the effort? We will not know unless in retrospect, how will we know if something's worth doing until after you've done it? I think that's the beginnings of my answer. What about any of you?
As much as I feel the big guilt and pain inside me is also that much I have the hope and belief in our potentials, which I don't know yet what it is. And the only way to explore is to keep learning. And every incident happening to us, especially pain, coming from Buddhist background, is telling us that is where we will learn the best, going to the root cause of things. And whatever we learned, it is called wisdom. And I think however potential human will become, it will include wisdom. So I believe that all learning is worth it. And I think every traumas include learning. So I think learning will always be worth it. And whatever it takes, including being resistant to it.
Whatever it takes, yeah.
I also agree with I think it's part of our life. So it's there regardless we are acknowledging or not. So just ignoring it doesn't make it less real. But I think there are ways that we can tend to them with a bit more dedication and care. And that's go back to the question of, if you are facilitating a workshop, is the facilitator ready to bring this into the circle? And how the facilitator can prepare him or herself to be ready. And I think it's just more, there are topics that is a bit more fragile, easier to break inside the group, that you just need to bring more care and preparation into it. It's not like it's like taboo, you can never talk about it. And at a certain point when the facilitator is mature enough, feel like they're ready, then they can really welcome the presence of those dark truths, like you said, in the circle.
Yeah, you're very right. It is really up to the facilitator and how they choose to hold the space and how they choose to navigate, hold space for the truth to emerge. Right?
If it's truth, it's there. You know, it's it's sensed, it's felt, it's experienced. So I believe in the power of truth.
Beautiful. Thank you, Helen. Thank you for that question, Gemma.
Thank you very much. That was a very helpful response. Thank you.
Hey, I'm glad. Okay. So, Keen, if Work That Reconnects were to take deeper root in Asia, like what's the next 5 years looking like for us? Are we getting richer as facilitators? Are we being offered to fly around the world facilitating? Say yes, Keen.
I would see more faces of people from this region, more calls in the time that works for Asia.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I also wrote something in the document that I'd love to see sharing of Asian-based practice into the work that we can all learn from each other.
Yeah, lovely.
I think if it take a deeper roots that it go full power in 5 years, I'm probably not going to be facilitating anymore. Because it's like there's a big network of people, and then the framework have become so commonly known. And then people learn how to use the framework to process their experience by themselves. And then like we all kind of like, you know, there were people who walked this path, and then it's just about sharing experience with each other, and everyone have more wisdom, because I experienced that the more I do this work, you also gain so much more insights and much more wisdom. And then that means like, because everyone's experience is very unique. And and then I think I can say like, yeah, the hope of seeing people, the wisdom that coming from the deep connections of people with their land, with their life, with the world. It's going to be a beautiful world. I don't think it's just going to happen in Asia. It can happen everywhere.
Inshallah, inshallah. Yeah. Helen, what about you?
I wish to see two things. One is happy people, and the other is we will be meeting in person.
Will you settle for one? Because I can fly to China, but I can't make people happy. So
one more thing I want to add. That means that also we see the ecosystem regenerations coming out of that also.
Yeah, great. Denise has a question for us, which is how can we stay connected? And I'm assuming, do you mean like to the panelists that are in the room today? Yeah. Well, Frida will be sharing a follow-up document. All of us are facilitator members within the network, so our details are already on the website. And so you have that option to reach out to us via that. Yeah, if there are no other further questions, I'm happy to hand it to Frida to wrap things up for us.
Thank you, Shayontoni. Yeah, how do we stay connected? That's a great question. I want to just offer you a link. This is the 10th year anniversary of the network itself, and we're going to be having some gatherings in June and then July for community members. So in June, we're going to be, a number of our facilitator members are going to be facilitating space and offering practices and presentations. It's going to be really sweet, and it's coming together right now. So I encourage you to join us. And This has been really beautiful. I felt like I've been gathered around the four of you sitting on couches on Om's porch or Helen's living room, and there's been a circle of us here today around you, just listening and receiving your wisdom and feeling your hearts and your laughter and your truths and your painful truths. It's been very beautiful. And I know that the gathering with the folks who are here, it's late for those of us in the Americas. This recording will be shared with the wider community and the wider, so I know that it will be viewed. Many people registered just to receive the recording. And thank you all, Kin, Om, Helen, and Shayontoni, for your beautiful moderation and your brilliant questions. This has been really sweet. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, if you all want to unmute and just offer a farewell to our panelists.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for facilitating.
Thank you. Good night. Good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Shay. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about the Work That Reconnects Network's Webinars and Conversation Cafe program, please visit our website at workthatreconnects.org, and we welcome you to become a community member of the Work That Reconnects Network. Visit workthatreconnects.org/become a member for more information.